Let's bring in John Bussey now, associate editor of the Wall Street Journal. John, always good to have you here.
Pleasure.
Particularly now because you can give us a little bit from your reporter's notebook, if you would. I'm curious. How did she do today with these questions?
Yeah, well, she's coming out. She has not been really accessible to reporters. Part of this is the campaign's desire to control the message. How much are you going to be able to control that message? How much do you look like you're avoiding talking with reporters, speaking to the public's interests? And I think today you saw that balance begin to shift, that there's desirability on the part of the campaign to look like it's forthcoming.
You know, the balance beginning to shift, and Ed Henry may have gotten it started with reporters, but really, supporters got this started today. She was at this event in Iowa, and a supporter asked her about not keeping her silence on the trade deal that the president and some members of the Democrat Party are not in agreement on right now. They want to know how she stands on it.
Yeah, well, Ed got to this point that there's a difference between the left and the president on the trade deal. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is a trade deal with Asia. It's going to open up markets further, including the United States. So there's a lot of tempestuousness in the debate over this. But this is something that Hillary Clinton is likely to come out and support fairly clearly because the business community also wants it, and she needs to curry favor with that constituency as well.
Isn't the point, though, that we don't know? And that's the point I'm making. I mean, because if you look at the polling over the last few months, critics of the media have said, well, you're making too much of the fact that she's not talking to you reporters. Really, people don't care about this. If things get kicked off by supporters today at this event, and it wasn't a huge event, these were people who were just curious about Mrs. Clinton, doesn't that tell you something about the damage that's potentially being done by her taking so long to talk?
Yeah, I don't know. We're a long way from the election, still almost a year and a half out, and a lot can happen between now and then. This is a campaign that is trying to control the message, that doesn't want to get in the way of the president, that doesn't want to capture all of the limelight, that wants to diminish the problems that have emerged over emails, over the wealth of the family, over the speaking fees. Mind you, though, Democrats still are very favorable for the Hillary Clinton candidacy.
Sure.
Her favorability may have sunk with Republicans, but it's still very strong with Democrats.
Real quickly, let's pop up the latest Fox News polling on this very subject, because I want to dig beneath the numbers here. What you're talking about is that favorability is still hovering around 45% overall. But the number that's ticking down that you'll note is 11%. Fewer independents are supporting her in the opinion poll right now. And that's critical because a lot of Americans, most of them, in fact, self-identify politically as independents.
Absolutely critical. And that's why you're going to see some very careful orchestration on these big issues. She needs to get that independent pool, just like any candidate do. Something on a third of voters might be in that realm of independence. Her favorability ratings with Democrats, 84% a year ago, about 82% now. She seems to have solidly captured that for the moment. But that independent segment of the voter pool is key for any candidate who hopes to be president. Yeah,
she said she really has not had a legitimate foil for her inside her own party. So if that changes, maybe we'll see something different. In fact, the biggest challenge for Hillary Clinton has been things that Hillary Clinton has said on the record.
And interestingly, the decline in favorability among Republicans, look, they may have felt better about Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State and not a candidate who's going to be running against a Republican.
All right, let's take a little bit of what she said on camera today, because you brought up the speaking fees and so on. I first of all want to look at, she was asked about Iraq, and this is an opportunity for her to get on the record on something. She may not see it this way, but this is what she said.
I know that there have been a lot of questions about Iraq posed to candidates over the last weeks. I've made it very clear that I made a mistake, plain and simple.
Your handlers, I would imagine, always want you to be on the offense with this by calling a news conference. This is a very different sort of a thing.
Yeah, well, but it's saying I goofed. I wasn't right on Iraq.
It's in her book. She wrote that.
Yeah, it gets it out there for the public who hasn't read her book. And remember, this was a big issue for in her campaign against Obama. This is a area where she was weak in. The public was very much against what had happened in Iraq, and she had voted to support the war at the initial stages. Here's a candidate saying, I made a mistake. Very different from Jeb Bush, who kind of fumbled this one for several weeks until finally coming out and saying, look, I wouldn't have supported it knowing what we know today.
I believe it was a couple of days last week. I don't want to expand it to several weeks because I don't think that was factually true. But let's move on. At one point, You mentioned the speaking fees, and the question that was asked among the reporters, is there a conflict of interest from the money that you've taken because of what's gone on with the Clinton Foundation, and some questions about some 1,100 people who donated to the Clinton Foundation that we didn't have on a list, and really where the money was coming from, that sort of thing. Now, she doesn't have to take every question, but I think we've queued this up. Take a look.
I think that most Americans understand that the deck is stacked for those at the top, and I am running a campaign that is very clearly stating we want to reshuffle that deck. We want to get back to having more opportunities for more people so that they can make more out of their own lives.
All right, now let's cue up the part where she's actually asked the question, too, about whether or not she regrets deleting 32,000 emails.
Deleting 32,000 other emails, Mrs. Clinton.
Yeah, we didn't get an answer to that one. And the connection, of course, would be that maybe some of the conflict of interest information might be in the 55,000 pages of emails that she turned over, or maybe it's in the 32,000 emails which were deleted. We don't know.
Yeah, this is going to be fly-specked in the campaign, as will the contributions to the Clinton Foundation. The scope of the speaker's fees, that's going to be a harder one to get traction on, because there's a lot of candidates who have kind of imbibed in that activity. But the Clinton Foundation, contributions to it, plus what happened to those deleted emails. So some of those questions will be answered as this rollout now happens of the emails being made public. But not all of them will be, because the emails were deleted.
Shredded, I think, is what we want to say there. Real quickly before I let you go, Hillary Clinton versus the State Department. In one of her answers today, she said, I want them to release these emails right away, the ones that they have. She handed them over in paper form. They can buy the software to make scanning them and searchable even faster. Let's hope that they do that if they have to, speed things up per this judge's order and to get those emails made public. But, John Hackett, who's tasked with his team over at the State Department to go through all this stuff, and she kind of threw him under the bus by saying, you guys got to speed this up.
Well, the State Department is saying that these are complex issues involving foreign nations, involving some confidential negotiations and discussions. It takes a while to untangle this. They had proposed releasing it all in January. The judge says, no, roll it out. And that's going to start happening, right? Particularly with emails related to Benghazi.
296 that we know so far.
Yeah, to her credit, also, a lot of those emails, she said, dealt with personal, family business, and so these are ones that were deleted. But the State Department's going to have to explain what's being released, the context of it, and is it going to fully answer what we want to know? Shouldn't she have to do some
of that? I mean, I don't know. I kind of envision maybe a Sunday afternoon where they all get together and pour over the emails. Gosh, but I'll tell you who this benefits if they speed it up. It'll be farther away from the campaign and the election day. They come out next January. That's going to be tough to refute if there's a bombshell among them.
Difficult if it's 2 weeks before the primaries start.
John, always good to have you.
Pleasure.